Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Civilization 6, coming at you with more of Tordread and the coaching of the stuff. And in this session, we're going to take a look back at my mediocre, at best, gameplay with Pericles. This is my first game on the Civ World Cup scene, and it just some early bad decisions. This is going to be a really good example of some awkward land and making the right decisions to make the best of it. Because it was never going to be an awesome spawn, but it could have been better. And I made some faulty decisions that really took away a lot of early tempo. And a lot of them I actually know about after reviewing it myself. And I've had people come at me and say, tough luck on the spawn, but you could have done this and this and this. Tordread's actually seen this game before. He watched it from my perspective. He watched it from Jack's perspective. Jack the Ripper, was on the other team playing Korea. And so we're going to go through this. It's probably a little bit faster than the last video, but we're just going to go through, maybe skip through to, key timings of building decisions, governor decisions, where to settle, and some of the mistakes that I made that he's kind of got in mind. So we're going to go and do the things. Are you ready, Tordread?
I'm ready, Dorm. Let's go.
All right. What about the Persia game before the qualifiers? Persia game. Oh, you mean I think we just looked at the one a little bit, the military stuff. Southrix, yeah. You talking about the one where I killed Colombia and Japan? We actually just look at the combat a little bit there. We could probably actually go through the earliest part of that another time as well, because that was an interesting early start as well. And I'd be curious to see what I did wrong. So in this particular spawn, you can see it's Highlands map, and it's just filled with hills. And it's actually a pretty glorious city. I ended up stepping on the 2-2. We ended up remapping, as it looks like. Or relobbying, I should say. So we were discussing with the team here. This is where I was thinking we would go. I was considering going straight right, but the idea was maybe I open up settles on the river if I go south, and anyway, and so we go forward.
Yeah, that's one situation where you have not enough information to be like,
yeah, exactly,
one way or the other you're going to do something. So this is fine.
Yeah, it turns out that I actually stepped towards the tundra, but it doesn't really matter because it was third ring. Moving to the right one tile might have actually been better for me, as it turns out, because it would have maybe encouraged me. There's Noob's beautiful spawn. Look at that copper. Only 7 copper in the capital, by the way.
Imagine if you went religious idols.
We were actually, what's funny is we had the discussion during this game about religious idols here. Because he was worried about whether or not the desert was going to be big enough to make folklore worth it. But religious idols could have been insane early on for him with that much copper. But I think he ends up going folklore anyway, because the desert does open up on both sides pretty good. But we did have a discussion about it for a while, and that was fishes, and of course it's into an ad. Thanks, YouTube. I should put that freaking ad blocker back on. So that was fish to settle. He didn't get a 2D base, but he had a nice 2-3 to work. So I move out here, and as you can see, fresh water is a big problem. I had a lake up there, and I settle in place.
Yeah, the big issue with Highlands in general is that your freshwater is a lot more limited, so you have to play around that a little bit more.
Yeah, you just have to kind of embrace the non-fresh life a little bit, I think, right? And
a little bit. You got to find those spots where it's like, this is fine, I don't really need fresh water, or it's like I can maybe like get an aqueduct later or something, right?
Yeah.
Pop the granary first.
Yeah, I think Rome is a top tier civ on this map. I just think that they're insane.
I ended up playing Rome actually on the Highlands map.
Yeah.
Recently, so yeah, I agree. It's pretty good.
We're trading us some gold, so I wanted to move forward. Still looking at stuff. I of course grew to the copper.
Looking at Noob.
Yeah, looking at Noob's gloriousness. So I went right here, and what ended up happening is I kind of went here, and then what I should have done is probably made sure I scouted. And I talk to people all the time.
Loop back up.
Yeah. Is I tell people this all the time, and then when in the heat of the game and you're going quick and you just start making instinctive decisions, I always say to people, your first 15 turns or so of scouting should be making sure you know the 15 tiles in every direction around your capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And learning about what's in the tundra is simply not important enough. And learning what eventually what I learned in the north. If I had just had this scout go north and just not stop, I would have learned so much better information. And I think
it goes into the tundra or something.
I go to here. I go up to this spice and I see that, and I think I just turn around here because I don't end up knowing any more information.
You don't want to go over the hilly terrain.
Yeah, I think I see a bunch of hills and no fresh water. I'm like, that looks gross. I'm not going that way. And I should have just grinded it out and kept going. And I think that's what ends up. Sometimes your brain just says path of least resistance, right?
Yeah, it's also one of those things. The timer's really, really fast for CWC. So,
yeah, the first 15 turns is like as soon as you just have to. Every unit has to move really quick because then the timer's over. It's like you don't have time to do.
I have actually missed moving my settler in CWC before.
Yeah,
because of the timer, so it's definitely very fast, but it's one of those things you can get used to it.
Yeah. We talked a lot about remapping this because Fish was off on his own, didn't have a very good settle. Noob didn't mind his, but it wasn't insane, and I obviously didn't like mine. But our thought process at this point was first game of the CWC. We're going against a really, really good team that's. Maybe it's a bad thought process, but these puppies are probably going to beat us. Do we want to blow it when we've got 2 or 3 other games that we think we can win, and maybe we give ourselves a better chance in those games? And then I think at the end, after 5 games, we ended up with the remap token in our pocket that we couldn't use, but we ended up saying nay here. For fuck's sakes. But the ads. Nothing like watching your own YouTube channel and getting an ad while making another video for that same YouTube channel. What I should have done is actually grab the Twitch VOD. I think I might have the Twitch VOD for this. Maybe it would have been quicker. But what ends up happening here is I see this Plains Hill to the north on a river, and I see the potential for an insane campus, and my instincts just kind of go freshwater, 2/2 base, probably find some decent tiles around that I can use, and I send this first settler there, and it's my biggest mistake because in a second I reveal horses and there's a bunch of them to the left, and you've already told me this before. Embracing the non-fresh life even with your first settle is probably the better call here, right?
Maybe it's very it's hard to say. The wine also looks very tempting, especially with all those horses around that area.
Yeah, that I think I ended up settling. I think I settled the wine eventually.
But the thing is, it's when you're going towards a settle, it should be something you have complete knowledge of, right? So I think you can actually. I think your scout is going to probably get the vision of
I think I go on there and then I think that's what I do here.
Because I think that's your settle regardless eventually.
It's just you need to do it when you can have a builder there immediately to beef up some tiles and do some work, because just your first couple cities are they're kind of helpless, right? There's not a lot of money to buy tiles. There's obviously no builder, so they need to be
naturally good,
to be naturally be able to take care of itself, and so I step here, and then I end up settling this. No, I settled this, and I was
especially now that you can't get that. It's a slow settle too.
Yeah, and right? the settler's out, and I've already made my mind up.
And especially also with the no God King and then getting the 10 Faith Hut.
Yeah.
That hurts because that could have been something.
Yeah.
It could have been pretty impactful. Maybe you could have gotten strategic Pantheon there and then look at that wine settle. It's just becomes actually like god tier because you could
Yeah.
get a builder out
Well, and I
there.
end up getting it, but I get it late. And
Hmm.
this is kind of an important part in the game where um I kind of feel like right now I could have made the decision, okay, I've got 4 horses over here and a cattle, and maybe I just go do the non-fresh thing, but I end up committing, and that's what makes this actually kind of a really bad choice. Even I guess the wine to the north, right? Maybe that you were saying that, I
I'm
think.
saying the wine on the non-fresh, I think,
Oh,
is
okay,
like
the wine to the non-fresh as well, because there's I end up settling the wine to the north as well on the lake. It would have been better, but not even that was they got a 5.
I don't even think that's like that's like fine later on. I think,
Yeah, because it's got a
but I think
2-2 I could have bought to the left, and then a 3-1.
because it's also this thing I said last time about like the settling turns, right? So
Yeah, the number of
it
turns to
takes you
get there.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get on that Plains Hill, and then that wine is only 6.
Yeah,
So, and it also just it's got a bunch of 2-2s. It's not going to get like that high a pop, so you don't really need to get it running that quickly, but it
yeah.
could get a builder. Get if you had strategic pantheon, you get like 4 different horses up. That's like 2 housing right there, granary. Now we're talking. Now we've
Hmm.
got like some housing, and it can get like 2 districts, maybe like audience chamber. You can get another district in,
Yeah,
like, and that actually looks like a pretty good city. Um,
yeah.
that 1-2, like, what do you? How do you even like fix that early? Like,
I
that's
know it was such a big mistake. It was just like in my head. Oh, 2-2 based on a river. It's got a good campus, and I didn't. I was nervous. Obviously, I didn't take the time to register in my head the idea of, okay, I need to evaluate my settle still, right? I already kind of made the decision and just left it at that. And even if I'd have just made the decision to run to the lake and settle this wine, I at least could have bought a 2-2 with the 3 food base, and it would have been some level of tempo, right? Like, if for
well.
an
I
early
mean,
city.
I think also like if you are embracing sort of the non-fresh, you can go for early settlers. Like you can maybe get your team up to like buy a builder because
Yeah.
it's you get especially if you get strategic pantheon for that city, like that gets you a huge tempo. You get a monument out there, then you go like settler
Hmm.
from both like capital and that city, and now you've got now see like now you're killing off population that you're already capped at.
Yeah.
So it like helps like that city's going to want to build a lot of settlers because it can't hold enough people. So uh, and that'll also help you with your tempo because it's a high production city. This city up here, it's like a good district city, but it's a city that you want to build later on because
Yeah.
the initial tiles are not good enough to sustain it. Even something like a non-fresh near that spice on the right would have also been a good
Yeah.
option
Yeah.
because it's
Well,
also like a 2-2 base. You
that's
got good districts. It's the same
so
kind of idea, right?
that was actually the next step I wanted to talk about. In like, I end up on a really stupid long walk to fresh water on the next settle as well, when I should have just plopped down in place. But it was one of those situations where I got an idea in my head for how I wanted to do districting, and I didn't want to, um, I guess, go against what I had made in my head as an idea. I didn't have a fluid thought process. Um,
Yeah,
but
especially when the clock's counting down. It's like I've got this plan out here. I don't really want to change this right now. This
Yeah,
is
exactly. It's like this
like
clock is just tick 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 in your ear, and just like it's just fine. But yeah, fluid decision making and not letting the clock get to you is important. So one thing I wanted to mention here, and I think you may have, I think Noob mentioned that you said this to him or something like that, and Noob relayed it, and when he came back and saw my video, he said the same thing. This is a situation where I need to be more aggressive about asking for money, because in my capital, I'm working the 1-2-2 copper because I don't have a third 2-2 to work at pop 3, and you can see it's taking me 16 turns to grow because I'm not getting that 2 food average that we talk about, right?
yeah.
And so this is where, but I can remember very specifically at this point. In fact, a second ago, if I back this up just enough, you can see that I take a look in the city. I think it's like right now. I look at the city. I go right here, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll live with this and for a bit, because I look up here to my right and I see that
See the
between,
goal.
I see like I've already been asked for gold like 3 times this game from those guys, and like they're the veterans of the team, and I don't want to be the guy asked for gold or whatever. But like I'm like, we don't have the, even if I get all the gold, I don't even have the tile now. And then so I'm like, I can't get the tile now, and so I immediately start making the decision. Okay, I guess I live with working the 1-2 for now, and I just don't grow, and it's really bad. And what I should have done in this moment, I think, is just been like, okay, next turn, I right now I should have said, next turn I need all of our gold. I have to buy a 2-2 in my capital, right? That should have been like,
Yeah.
like
Because also you're never going to grow to like either of those 2-2s like really fast because
yeah,
they don't have any resources on them.
yeah.
So like
It wants to grow to the 2-1, and then it may grow.
And
to
the
the
longer
finishing.
you wait, you also just like get into the position where now it costs 30 gold instead of 25, and
Yeah, exactly.
now it's 35 gold, and now it's like, oh, okay, well, I
Yeah,
still have to pay money for this at some point. Like,
exactly.
let's invest now. It also gets more egregious, I think, if I remember, when you get to your second city,
Oh
and
yeah,
you're working like 2 food tiles
yeah,
instead of like something else, like
yeah. I could have like bought a 1-2 or
or
something
something,
like
anything
anything to avoid working the 2 food tiles.
it's anything.
Yeah. So yeah, it goes forward here, and let me just get to. I want to move forward to like where I start my. So I've stepped up on the hill, and the second settler is about to pop, and yeah, like you can see, I've got my districting set up right, and so I just. It was so stupid, but I wanted that crazy good campus right next to the Gov Plaza, but and that's why the 1-2 to the right of the campus tile that I have pinned is where I probably should have put this settler that's about to pop. I could have bought out to the 4-2 splice with a 2-2 base and just thrown that city's campus there, and then the capital still had a +4 campus just to the right. Mm-hmm. But in my head, I'm like, ooh, look at these juicy campuses around the Gov Plaza, right? Yeah. And your mind falls in love with that idea, and you never. I did sit
also back. Like to have like the districts all like next to each other that are like, yeah. Okay, this one's boosting this one, then I'm gonna get this one. It's gonna like, oh, it's gonna just be like perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, it just was.
You gotta sort of like break up with that fantasy at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're looking at that.
Yeah, and I didn't break up with the fantasy, and then I end up like it comes to a point. I don't know, like right around the time where I could have just settled and bought the 4-2. I think I said something along the lines to guys. I'm like, my settler's just gonna go on a fucking walkabout here. Like, I could see the right hand side of that lake there, and I'm like, okay, there's some sort of fresh water up there. I'm just gonna come through this pass and cross my fingers.
Also, something to point out is like, now that you have horses revealed, like left of Athens, you've got a 3-turn settle on a horse next to some like beautiful hill areas. Like, definitely could make something work out there. And now that you also know it's not like fresh water is something that you're gonna have a lot of this game anyway. So you should just be like more concerned about, okay, settle time. Is it quick? Are there 2-2s nearby or within like the second ring that I can get cheap? Is there like hills for Acropolis? Let's get these cities out quick. Let's just keep getting our infrastructure up. Let's get monuments for that culture, because that's also something.
What I actually would have liked in this is actually the stone, maybe right by that horse, with a 2-2 base, because I ended up with.
Oh, you got the Pantheon for the horses?
I ended up getting. Oh, geez.
Whatever it's called.
Craftsman, yeah. So I ended up getting the Craftsman, and so like if I just settled that, I still could have opened up like
cattle settle maybe up there near those
cattle settle too. Exactly. The cattle settle with all those horses would have been gross. Like, yeah, my city, like I just kind of got locked in with all this. I guess I was just anxiety.
I mean, I think it's also just you're looking for fresh water wherever you can, and you're overvaluing it.
Yeah.
Instead of production.
Exactly. I was, and the funny thing is, this is the first time I'd ever played a Highlands map. Nobody on our team had played a Highlands map at this point, and I think what had happened was, as a team, we didn't know what to expect, And I was just like, why don't I have any fresh water, right? Because it just doesn't make sense. On the other map, there's like generally a river or a lake around somewhere, or at least a coast. And in this, it's just like you can go for days. Like it's no fresh water, no fresh water. A couple mountains, desert, desert, desert. I'm like, how am I not finding? I mean, there ends up being a river eventually in the desert, which does me no good. But like, I'm just like, how am I not finding any of the good things? Like, and I just in my head, I'm just like, it's got to be fresh water. I can't go settle on like, that was it, 100%. In my head, I'm like, I can't settle non-fresh with my first two cities. Like they have to be freshwater, right? Like that's just what I had in my head, and yeah, that was extremely costly.
Yeah, this is a game where audience chamber makes like a world of difference too.
Yeah.
If you can get that early.
Yeah. For sure.
Like even you could probably like still do that setup if you moved like one north of where your settler is right now and settled there.
Yeah,
like,
you could. Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, the 2-2, and then I would have actually had the spice and the silk.
You'd have a good campus, good Acropolis. You'd have quality tiles.
Yeah, like that. I should have easily settled that. Yeah, hills and stuff. Like, I mean, it would have. The city would have been limited on total amount of tiles to work, but I mean, not every city's got to be a.
And we're looking at Korth working the 2 food right now.
Oh, stop!
It's
This is the thing though, is I've got all these scouts and I'm moving around and having discussions with the teammates and like I'm not even sure what I'm talking about at this point, but I see myself jibber jabbering with the team, and I'm like looking at where to settle the city, but like I'm not even thinking about my freaking second settle. Like
it's already down.
It's down. It's monument's going, baby. That's what you do, right? You hit the B button and you start the monument,
and you look away and you hope
it look away. Yeah. It's just like you're on your own now. I got you where you're going, and it just Oh, I got to build her out so that and this is where I still hadn't gotten the 2-2, and I'm like, okay, well I'll go improve that copper, so I'll have a 2-2 now. And again, easily could have just said noob. You're Molly. Why the?
Yeah, Noob had like 200 gold or something per turn on turn.
Yeah, why am I not just tapping him dry? Right. So you can see here, right there. I click on it. I'm like, do I settle? Do I settle? I click on it again. I'm like, oh, there's a lake there. Let's go. And then this is right around the time I'm like, I guess I'm going on a walkabout. But like you said, that's actually just right there.
Yeah.
2-2 with culture.
You also still have the fresh water later.
Yeah. Oh, I should have just settled that.
Yeah. And it's all about the tempo.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want to have like a time where you're like, because that settler is basically just like moving production that hasn't like started producing anything yet. Right. Yeah. So like every turn it's sitting there, it's like, that could be another 5 production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. and it could be another move towards more food or more growth, which means another little bit of science and culture. Like it just the second you get it down, it's doing all the things, and yeah, it could have been so much better.
It's a lot easier to play things when it's Pangea and you have very like obvious things. It's like, oh, this is a river, let me find a 2-2.
Exactly.
I mean, it's got a couple 2-2s. Okay, I'm good to go. And this is Highlands, so it's like there's no fresh water. It's all weird. There's just a billion hills, a lot of mountains everywhere. It's good luck, basically.
Yeah.
It works out well for Greece a lot of the time, though, because you get like those consistently good Acropolis spots.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a hill because there's nothing but hills, right? Sorry guys, I was looking at something else. Southwark's Gov Plaza +2 Acropolis set up between Cap and Second City. Yeah, if I'd have gone here, I could have just gone Acropolis there. Well, I guess, yeah.
You could have done that too, because you can still like pop the +4. Like, there's a bunch of other spots like that works out too. You don't have to get like that's one of the reasons why I was thinking the spot like 2 tiles south of Silk, because then you can also put in Acropolis. You could still set up your campus for Cap like in that same spot, then Acropolis, and that chains together. So with the campus, and then you put a campus next to that spot, and now that Acropolis is popping off. So yeah,
So sorry, Celtrix, you're talking about you're thinking a setup this way, like a Gov Plaza there, like that left to the left.
I think he's talking about the same spot you have. He's just like changing out the campus.
You guys have a picture. Okay, thank you, Celtrix. Yeah, because so I end up I knew there was a lake there. I'm like, I wonder where that lake's gonna later end up, and I still could have, like you said, if I'd have just settled. Because again, it's turn 25. That city is like, I think 3 more turns from settling. I can't remember how long I go there, but it's just looking back at this game is just so embarrassing. Hey, Ladmark's good to see you.
Looking back, it's turn 25 and you have 2 culture turn on Greece.
I know, it's like, just
it's a little painful, not to lie. But
it is more than a little painful. And like I got Craftsman and I still was like, oh my god.
Got Craftsman and then you didn't see the like 3 or 4 horses and you're like, I'm headed that way.
Yeah, like there's 4 horses, there's a stone and a cattle settle that just pop off. And it was so much pressure and so much you
can skip ahead though a little bit to see like stuff to.
So I end up since I'm at Russia down there, so I knew they were bottom left of me. The settle goes down. It's a good city too. Like it ends up being a good city over here, and it doesn't lock up. The thing is that settle that I could have settled right here, right to the campus. I didn't even end up settling it. I don't even know what I was thinking. I just fell into like this defeatist attitude maybe a little bit, and I fell in love with getting this campus down because I'm like, I'm gonna be pop 4 soon because I'm working all these fucking 2 food tiles and 3 food tile.
And now let's give up the 1-2 tile we just bought. Put
a campus on it.
You see it goes from like 6 turns to 11 turns.
Yeah. Oh god, it's just painful. If I recall correctly, the worst thing about this game was moving turn 1 killed all your other settles. Yeah, it was it's a weird kind of a setup. I feel like it ended up being okay. See, you can see right there, I'm pointing at that city, like, okay, I'll settle that later. Right? And I got the river to the right, and I'm looking at different settle options here now, right? And
like, well, there's fresh water out of this desert all the way out there. Like, maybe I can get there.
Maybe I go settle the sugar tile and work 0 production for 15 turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't want to settle, because I would have had to settle the 2-1 base on the Grasslands Hill. It was definitely going to be stepping on one of the 2-2s. It was whether I cross the river or go down it. And I think I'm perfectly fine with where I ended up settling. I'm not sure why I went Slinger. I think I was just like being super protective again.
Probably just trying to make sure, like, okay, no one's gonna like just get into these tiles, get them up to archers.
Yeah, I think it was just like I like getting a couple slingers early and be like, okay, I'll have archers online if anything happens. You know what I mean? Like,
but I mean, like, Corinth probably shouldn't be building that. Corinth probably needs every single ounce of production.
Yeah, exactly.
Can be doing into infrastructure.
Yeah. So now I'm discussing the option of that maze settle, but then I was like, oh, there's no hills on that maze settle. Maybe I'm not settling the maze anymore. Yeah, it's if you do the command that's in the title, Van, you can learn all you need to know about. Yeah, so let me just move forward here to a point where, so this ends up, there's another brilliant move I did this game, that I ended up getting archery and the slinger turned into an archer in Corinth. God damn, this is embarrassing.
And also having archery not researched by anyone on the team on turn 30 is like a little bit concerning.
Yeah.
Especially like if someone needed horses at that point, like, or I don't know, just an archer to defend. Mm-hmm. Just like how you were sort of getting those up. So it's also you have 4 pop in your capital right now, and you still haven't pre-placed any of the districts. That
like, well, the thing is I don't have the
Yep.
Whatchamacallit, yeah. There's another. So for on Pericles, do you generally like? Do you go political philosophy first, or do you get the Acropolis first?
Depends, I think. Uh, I don't know. It's very hard. I really like getting governments fast, but um, on Pericles specifically, if you have a wonder, I think it's like really nice, quick tempo. Like if you get like an early oracle, like maybe like a 3 city oracle setup, then you get like it's boosted, right? So hurts a lot less.
Yeah.
Um, but the government just feels a lot safer because if you're not immediately getting Acropolis out in every single city and you have like something else you're doing, like you're finishing up a settler or something, then it hurts. Um, Especially with the amenity changes, like if you have if you get autocracy, you can get some extra yields to maybe get like a wonder or something. You can get classical republic to get amenities from some of your couple cities with a district
Yeah.
fast. Uh,
Okay, so this is the here. Second settle into granary. Yeah, I agree with that. I should not have gone like that. Yeah, you mentioned the Magnuson to uh into Hanging Gardens. Hanging Gardens would have been an interesting idea. I know you like Hanging Gardens a lot. You would have moved the Gov Plaza. You would. I wouldn't have. I would have settled the stone, right? You settled the stone with Craftsman. I'm trying to figure out what you're doing here. Commercial Hub, Acropolis, Gov Plaza. They show your Gov Plaza here.
the main reason to sell the horse would be to get like the better district set up, and you just like
Yeah.
sacrifice that horse, and
Okay.
that way
Yeah.
you can get the Acropolis kind of set up, and then get a Gov Plaza in the middle.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
That's also a little bit easier to think about and craft when you're not on like a 30-second timer or something
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, so like the kind of setup you came up with is like perfectly reasonable as well. It's not like bad because you still have like it affecting multiple districts. So
Yeah.
that would just be more of like an optimization thing.
Yeah. So this is where I'm trying to get down to the wine side. I'm still avoiding the fact that I have, um, what do you call it, craftsman, and just avoiding horses like the plague for some reason.
You see one scout, you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to down there. You have a sure.
I'm
It's not like the guy could do anything to you.
such a pussy. I am such a pussy. As Pericles, you want to try and get this set up. Yeah, you like getting the Acropolis is with big boosts. Yeah. Yeah, you embraced the non. And like I said, I completely just was fearful of the non-fresh, and just the very first time I had ever played on Highlands, and I just was so thrown over by all the lack of fresh water. I'm like, I guess I'm just getting screwed on fresh water, and I got to go find it, and I didn't get there.
I think also this is a game where you go for Moksha in your capital
Okay.
instead of Magnus. I one thing I talk about a lot is that Moksha is like the best opening in pretty much 90% of circumstances. Magnus is like really situational in my opinion. It works fine for things like Persia because you're going to have
Internal.
lots of traders,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, internally. So that ends up being like fine. I still end up going Moksha in a lot of Persia games I play.
You go Moksha Cap, you mean?
Yeah, just because you want to get that extra culture running, and you're also going to get that like multiplier 15% on your culture,
Yeah.
and that's probably going to be your highest culture city. So it ends up sort of like working out. If you go up for a culture game, like your Gov Plaza is going to be there too. You can get like the final promotion later on,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not moving it around. Like Pingala, probably if you're going to go for an Oracle game and get that, because then you can obviously like multiply the great people points.
Yeah. I think generally, like, I think my mentality is with Magnet, or with um playing with Pericles in general, is there's gonna be lots of culture. Let's get Pingala going for the science, and then the culture's going to come along. But let's get some early science going, and then Magnus for the chops. Obviously, in this city, I didn't utilize my chops fast enough at all.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Yeah, I was gonna say if you are going Magnus, it's just Chop City, because
yeah,
I think you go like one. If you're gonna do that, you go one promotion Magnus, and then you just chop the crap out of your cap. Then you move him, and you do like sort of like the typical Magnus game where you're moving him around a lot instead of like a trade route game with him.
yeah.
Because Magnus is definitely a really good governor, and one that you want to be like moving around, especially to lower end cities where
Like you can chop them out in your capital, and then like maybe your seventh city's got a lot of chops, but like it's kind of hurting. It's like, okay, we'll just accelerate that bad boy, put Magnus in there. I like
put Magnus in there. Like one chop is like a district, another chops the building, another chops like another district, chop the building, and it's like, wow, the city like can't produce anything, but it's got like two districts. So
yeah, it's done. Yeah, and I kind of agree. So I think chopping audience is actually a really good play for speed, for sure. And because I just and the other thing too, and probably the biggest mistake, other than settling and stuff like that in this, was I always get stuck going for the amphitheater fast because I just get thrown off by the amount of turns it takes. And I think, you know what I mean?
I'll never get to that if I don't start it now, basically.
I know, it's just like, look at that amphitheater, 11 turns. It's like, I go get a builder, which is fine, but I don't know. I think I end up. Oh no, I go settler here, and I'm trying to get my settlers out and settle more cities. But it's just like I find it hard. Like I get my first 4 or 5 cities, and it's like I want to try and get settlers, but also it's like, okay, I get like 3-turn amphitheater or a 3-turn Acropolis, and it's like, oh my god, I gotta have every city spend 7 or 8 turns on an amphitheater, and I have a hard time getting my mind around like get him done. You know what I mean? Like get those things done and get the free envoys and start taking control of city states. And as it turned out in this game, is like my job was going to be to control Antenna and Revo, and so I had to compete with Russia, and it ended up being a pain in the ass. But
also, like promoting Magnus here, it's like you have built 0 commercial hubs and you have 1 trade route, so it's like 2 food, 2 production instead of you got record history in like 3 turns or something. Where you could then put a Moksha in one of these other cities like Argos. Or you could switch Moksha into Athens after if say we did like a bunch of chops like on all those 2/2s, got like another settler, got our audience, then you could then move on to move Magnus to, I don't know, like the top city there. There's a bunch of chops.
Yeah. Chopping and moving. Oh man, this is easily the worst game I've played, maybe in all of my multiplayer games. It's actually like honestly, the very first multiplayer game I ever played on CPL was probably better than I played in this game, and it really makes me very sad. It just I every time like I haven't really been back to watch this, other than like I watched it like kind of skip through it quickly right after. I'm gonna go to the second. In this, how do I get to part 2? Of course, it's not readily. Why would it be readily available to watch part 2? Can you suggest me content from 17 other streamers instead of giving me part 2 of the series I'm watching? Thank you.
Also, one thing to like sort of point out is that it could be that you have like you could do the like how Southrix was saying about like how Magnus gives you like that extra tempo, but Moksha would have maybe also given you the tempo for the Acropolis to get them earlier as well, and then you get those out, and that could also help out. But it's just like what is your priority? Is it getting like that extra production on shops? If so, get in, get out. Like it's a heist of production.
Yeah, I like that. Just a heist. I know, getting builders and sending them back to the cap. Yeah, This is where I get into a freaking, oh my god, I there was so much beautiful land up here north of my capital too, and I ended up trying to scout it with the archer, and then the archer gets in a fight with like 17 warriors from this city state up here, and it takes me like 20 more turns to find out that there's beautiful land up there, and then yeah, oh god. Moksha Magnus first is 5 turn delay on Moksha, which is bearable given tempo on Magnus. No, it's true, and I completely misuse Magnus here. I don't know. I got into it. I think what happened was I got into a train of in my head of like getting like I just had this step of things like, okay, I got to get the Acropolis built, I got to get the Gov Plaza built, I got to get Audience built, and I just kept going down that lane instead of saying, hey, I know, let's get a couple of builders and chop this shit out. And I didn't get my head to that because I was just stressed, and I just made so many mistakes. And I was nervous. Like I get obsessed with, I don't want to say obsessed with like those stats, but like with not wanting to feel irrelevant. And like, I get nervous about the fact that, you know, I'm playing against other awesome players, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want my teammates to like look at my stats and be like, how come you're getting your ass kicked, or why are you not playing better? Or, and I don't know. I actually fight anxiety really badly. I've always kind of had really bad anxiety. And so like, I'm just like, I don't want to be the guy who's not performing for his team. So then
that makes sense. Especially like you come into multiplayer, you haven't had like too much exposure into that stuff, and now you're in the deep end kind of thing. And it's definitely hard. It comes with a lot of practice. You get more like comfortable being like, wow, this is like a crap situation. Like, I'm just trying to do my best.
Yeah. That was kind of like the first game we looked at. I was just like, I'll just do my best and, you know, hold them off and do the things I know how to do and not die, instead of like, how can I have an impact on the game? So I did see the DM. I really hope that you're feeling better, and I hope that tomorrow works out and we can get that cast in. It's gonna be a great game tomorrow.
Be sure to watch that too.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. Ulysses CC.
It's a good game right there.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. You got thrown in probably why your first game went better. No, except my very first game. That game where I was showing you where I killed everybody with 6 City Persia. It was my very first game. I didn't even know I was gonna play in it, and then he sent me a message like, I think it was the day before or maybe 2 days before, and he's just like, Jessica doesn't really want to play in this game, and you know, we could, you know, if you really want, we can get you subbed onto our roster as an emergency sub in, and we're gonna play against, and it was like a really high pressure game. We win, we move on to the finals of the CPL qualifying against the CWC. And then I just went in there. I'm like, I'm Persian. Everything just worked so well. I didn't really feel a ton of pressure. I just was.
There's zero expectation.
Yeah, it's just like this. Yeah, it's just like emergency sub. Okay, if I do something, I do something, and I ended up killing it. Right, winning us the game. Versus this game, it's like, okay, I've got a few games under my belt. You know, this is the big time. This is CWC playing against Jack, and you know,
it can be very like. There's a lot of pressure when you're playing against like some of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
And it's like they know how to abuse every single little advantage. So like it feels like being aggressive against them. It's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like misstep once and then it's like over, right?
Exactly. And so like when I'm playing this part, like at this point in the game, like when I'm like my eye goes to campus so much, because as long as my thought process is, as long as I have science, then I won't die. Right? If I have as much science as him, I'm getting to the techs. If he hits me with one thing, I can count. If he comes with knights, I can get pikemen. If he comes with cuirassiers, I can get pike and shots and crossbows, and I'll fight him off. And like that's what my thought is: just keep up on science. There's really good campus here, really good campus there. I'll double the adjacency. I'll have 45, 50 science, and it'll be fine. right? And right now in this game, I'm thinking, okay, I'm slow. I've made some mistakes. I'm not settling properly. I need to get my settlers out. But hey, my stats are as good as everybody but Jack. That's, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing okay here. But I've at the same time, I've still missed so many things. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm in a room with 7 great players, and my thought process can't be just about, like you said, okay, it can't be just about stats. It's what are those stats going to mean in the game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I need to get out of the mentality of like, make sure that you're, make sure you're getting something done, I guess.
There's like a pretty like famous thing that a lot of like CPL FFA players will do, which is like CC to the blue number. It's like everyone's simming, and it's like, oh, I guess this guy's probably gonna kill us all. So
yeah,
but he hasn't
exactly.
done anything yet. So, and it really only matters if they're able to do something with it. So
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you're able to, like, the thing is, you're building a lot of stuff, but then eventually you have to like get the military online. You got to start like tree building stuff because the other guy's going to start doing that. So he has like a massive production edge if he's able to get all that gold for himself. And that's one of the things where Mali makes a huge difference, because you can sort of cheat production. Like, you could build a bunch of like heavy chariots and then be like, okay, I've got like 6 knights or something I could send up somewhere and do a little bit of harassment.
Yeah, they're absolutely gross. They're absolutely gross. And
that's why I was like telling Noob after the game, because I had watched and I was like, man, like, why were they not asking for more? Like, I saw Fish asking for a lot of money to buy like swords and stuff constantly, but where was the other two?
Yeah, I know. I totally should have just been begging for money to like accelerate, like buying builders and buying tiles, and like there's so much I could have done, and I just And again, at this point, again, I'm building a campus. I'm building a settler. I'm building 2 builders. I still haven't built my amphitheaters because, again, I can't get my head around like immediately doing it. Okay, my thought process is okay, eventually I'm going to build all these amphitheaters when I got a little bit better production, and then everything will be fine, because then I'm going to get them eventually, right? Like, I'll get those envoys. I'll have like 8 envoys all of a sudden, and then I can do whatever I want with them, right? And instead of like, so what is your thought process on that? Like, get me out of that thought process to the point where I'm making like.
So
do you just say screw it?
For amphitheaters early, you don't want to build them. There's like, maybe in your capital, since your capital is going to have like the highest production, right? You can maybe get like 4 or 5 turn amphitheater. And I like to save them till later, because you can, around the feudalism timing, you get those like 5 charge builders. They have plenty of extra charges. You can spend 1 on like, or 2 for chops. Get that amphitheater out. Like, maybe even like chop another builder if you have like a lot of chops. Then you've got a ton of room to just be like, okay, I want this chop. I want this chop, kind of situation. And the chops are also more valuable at that point, right? They scale with the amount of text you have. So it actually means that like that amphitheater is not like too far away, really.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, like I had a couple people come back with feedback about this game saying, why did you wait so long to build your amphitheaters? And I always get the theater scores down really fast, like the Acropolises. I get my Acropolises instantly, and they're so quick, and it's obviously half price. But then I'm like, I feel like I want to get builders, I want to get settlers, I need to get a commercial over campus build.
That's the right mentality. Yeah, that's the right mentality.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just some people are like, it's so much value to get those built and get the envoys. I'm like 10 turns of production in an early city at turn 45 is a lot of investment for one envoy. Like, you can't possibly think that there's, you know what I mean? Like, that's my thought.
It's like, definitely, you want to. The main value of the amphitheater is not like the culture. It's once you can actually get like the works in it that it actually becomes like useful. So if you don't have works yet, it's not useful. The theater square itself is like probably the most valuable part of the entire district chain, really.
Yeah. And the fact you can build
it outside of like the fact you can like then get stuff for tourism afterwards, and like getting the culture, like the great works and the base district is why you get the theater square.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so I think the big takeaways that you can get from this playthrough is, oops, let me do that. I'm gonna skip. Is embrace the non-fresh more, and better decision making in general. Like I didn't like look at this. Like this is painful to watch looking back. I mean, look at all these tree chops in a Magna City on turn
yes, in a
52.
Magna City that you still haven't like.
I still haven't gotten the promotion for internals yet. Even if that mattered, because I've got one freaking trade route.
Exactly. Actually, I think you have the promotion for trade routes. I think.
Oh, did I? Oh, I did.
I think it's actually just like a blunder because it doesn't help you at all.
It's not like I'm building commercials anytime in the near future.
Exactly. So
it was such a
because you have a Molly in the game, like you're fine on gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think also like something is like settle turns. Like you have to think about that terrible. Because you should just like that's part of the reason to embrace non-fresh, especially on these types of maps.
Yeah.
Thinking about early yields, wet. If you can get a city that's self-sufficient, unlike Corinth, that now that it's got like some mines, it's looking
exactly.
Okay.
I got some 2-3s, and I'm about to get a 1-4 online, and it's up to it'll be pop 7 with a governor, and so it's perfectly fine. But like you said, that's like as your 5th city, right? And I'm about to settle the city that I could have easily. I kind of screwed this up. I probably should have just settled cattle and stone here, but I decided
the cities that we were talking about that would be like good early cities are cities you have never settled yet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a lot of bad decision making, which just and then like I get a 1-4 there. The city's popping off, and I'm getting settlers out, and it's okay, but. I ended up liking the way that city turned out around all those horses, but I could have gotten 2 cities out there. But again, it was like, I mean, if I'm going to go non-fresh, I might as well just make it a really big non-fresh. I don't know what my thought process was. Instead of just getting more cities, more cities means more Acropolises, and it was just stupid. Yeah, tempo and like Slum said there, like a non-fresh 5-turn settle is a hell of a lot better than venturing through the mountains for 10 turns to settle a city that's basically kind of the same thing but with fresh water.
Like the same, like when you look at Argos and where you could have settled that like 4 or 5 turns in advance.
Yeah.
And then you could have probably just built a settler out there, and then it would have been a quick like 4-turn walk to that spot. So like priorities of like, I mean, it's not like that's the best city in the world or something, but it's got enough like production to carry it.
Yeah.
For the early game.
Yeah, it's got enough. Like I could have bought the 4-2 tile, and then or even
silk.
Actually, there's a good question.
Silk and then
you buy the silk, and then you get the spice for free, right?
Yeah, especially because it's a non-fresh city. The food is going to mean almost nothing.
Yeah. So you take the culture, which obviously that early one culture on turn 15 is actually significant. To work a 2, and then you get the 4-2 for free, and like you said, 2 extra food in a city that's already against housing pop limits is no big deal.
It's having the value anyway, and then
exactly. So it's really a 3-2 tile. It's a 4-2 tile, but it's really a 3-2 tile. Then when you get to pop 2, it's actually just a 2-2 tile. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Oh man, interesting game. Jack just went disgusting in this game.
It was a disgusting spawn he had too, as well. So
we had him and I went back to look. If they hadn't remapped, we had them so good. In order to beat them, we would have needed a map like that first one. Like God spawn. I had an amazing spawn. Noob had a God spawn. He would have been able to do great. We were all in kind of a nice position where we know we was going to be able to be pressured. And then we were like going to really be able to hurt them, and they had bad spawns. Like it was a situation where that first one, if they had remap, we actually could have done really well in that game. And then of course they remap, and we get into this, and Jack's on God spawn, and even all that space for Russia, we couldn't get to them. It was basically an East versus West, and it was just
at this point it's just like you're sort of set up, right? And like now nothing really can change. It's like
exactly. I say that to people all the time, even in single player. Like the decisions you make halfway through the game have a mere fraction of an impact compared to the decisions you make in the first 20 turns, Like the decisions you make in the first 20 to 25 turns of like an online speed game or 50 turns in a standard speed game, those decisions have 95% of the impact on the game. The the last 80% of the game has like 10% of an impact on the game. Like it's all the decisions that are going to dictate what happens in the game are made like, so early.
Yeah, you have like the value of like, are you good at warring? Like, how is your like now that you do like a push with all that stuff you've done in like those early turns?
Yeah.
Now it's coming to like bare arms basically.
Exactly.
And, now you can like show off in that sort of fashion. There's like small little things like when you get like encampments rolling to get like those generals, when like what sort of things you're like microing. But it's like very small things you can sort of improve on, and there's like a lot of them in like sort of that later era. Yeah. But the early game, there's a lot of major things that you
everything is so important
that make a huge difference. And if you're good at like the first 30 turns, then even if you're not that great later on, you still have like a good starting position.
Yeah, you're gonna be fine because of all the things you did right.
Each time you like try again, like at least you're starting from like a decent map position every single time.
Yeah.
If you can get good at that first 30 turns.
Yeah. Being just making the right decisions on where to settle, governors, you know, if you're going Magnus, maybe get 3 or 4 builders and chop these goddamn forests.
Maybe
it's a good idea. I don't know. Or you could build a goddamn swordsman. What am I doing? Oh my god! I'm turning it off. I'm turning it off. I'm not watching another second of that shit. What? Oh my god, that was bad. Oh, okay. Tordread, again, unbelievably generous of you to volunteer your time. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
I'd be down for that too.
Okay. Yep. For those of you in Twitch who don't know, you can do the Tordread command in chat. In fact, I'll do it myself right now because why not? For those of you on YouTube watching this, there will be information down below the video. You can check out Tordread. You can go on that link and there's like all these lists of all of his accomplishments, finishing first in all these tournaments, destroying the world. He does it like it's easy. I don't know how you do it, man. How many hours do you have in this game, by the way?
It's like at least like 6,000, 7,000.
Yeah. I'm at 4, but 3 of that was, or 3,500 of it is a single player. So I'm probably less than 500 hours in multiplayer, to be honest with you. But I'm getting there. It's just the pace and the decision. Like that whole game was filled with bad decisions, and it was just because you just like you said, it's the clock, and you make one decision and it's the wrong one, but you've already made it, and your mind doesn't want to go back there because you've got 7 other decisions to make, and it's too late. So anyway, thank you very much. Again, the information's there, YouTube. Go check it out. Tordread does the coaching things, and if you want to get better at multiplayer, maybe you're just getting in and you want to learn, to get good single player to multiplayer transition, maybe, or maybe you're a good multiplayer guy but you want to get on a team that can get to the CWC. Check it out. He's the guy to make you better. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.